The Corvashi war drums fell silent as Captain Sarah Chen stepped into the crimson sand of the challenge arena. Above her, 10,000 alien warriors filled the crystalline amphitheater, their chitinous armor gleaming under the harsh twin suns of Kepler 442b. The air thrummed with tension so thick it could be cut with a plasma blade. She was alone. No backup. No weapons beyond what the ancient laws permitted. A single ceremonial blade and her own 2 hands. The Terran Federation had gambled everything on this moment, on her. Admiral Vextar, the Corvashi Supreme Commander, loomed on his obsidian throne at the arena's peak. His 6 eyes gleamed with predatory satisfaction as he watched the small human below. To him, she looked fragile, barely 5.5 feet tall, weighing perhaps 60 kilograms soaking wet. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her Federation uniform bore the scars of 3 years of brutal warfare across the outer rim. "Behold," Vextar's voice boomed across the arena through bioacoustic amplifiers, "the champion of the weak-blooded humans. She stands before the might of the Corvashi Empire, foolishly believing her pathetic species deserves to exist among the stars." Sarah's jaw tightened, but she remained motionless in the center of the arena. The terms were clear: single combat against the Empire's greatest warrior. Victory meant the Corvashi would withdraw from human space and grant them 50 years of peace. Defeat meant the systematic extermination of every human colony in the galaxy. The arena gates groaned open, and Sarah's opponent emerged. Warlord Kreshtar stood nearly 3 meters tall, his exoskeleton a natural armor that had deflected plasma rifles and railgun slugs. His 4 arms ended in razor-sharp claws that could tear through titanium plating. Scars crisscrossed his carapace. Trophies, from 1,000 battles across a dozen worlds. He had never known defeat. The crowd erupted in bloodthirsty cheers as Kreshtar raised his ceremonial war axe, its blade crackling with contained energy. He had personally slaughtered hundreds of human soldiers, and today, he would add their champion to his collection. Sarah drew her blade, a simple carbon steel sword antiquated by galactic standards but permitted under the ancient combat laws. The weapon felt familiar in her hands, a connection to humanity's violent past when survival meant mastering the art of war with primitive tools. "Your species clings to outdated weapons," Kreshtar hissed, his mandibles clicking with amusement. "You will die as your ancestors did, screaming and afraid." Sarah's response was calm, measured. "My ancestors conquered their world with tools like this. Let me show you why." The battle began with Kreshtar's thunderous charge. His 4 arms moved in perfect coordination, the war axe carving through the air where Sarah had stood a split second before. She rolled left, her blade singing as it found the gap between his shoulder plates. Blue ichor sprayed across the sand. Kreshtar roared, spinning with surprising agility for his size. His claws raked the air, missing Sarah by centimeters as she ducked and weaved with fluid precision. The crowd's cheers turned to murmurs of confusion. This human moved like liquid mercury, flowing around attacks that should have torn her apart. For 20 minutes, they danced their deadly ballet. Sarah's smaller size became her advantage. She was a ghost, striking from impossible angles, exploiting every weakness in the Corvashi's defenses. Her blade found its mark again and again, each cut precise and purposeful. But Kreshtar's endurance was legendary. He adapted to her tactics, his attacks becoming more calculated, more vicious. A backhand swipe caught Sarah across the ribs, sending her tumbling across the arena floor. The crowd roared its approval as she struggled to her feet, blood seeping through her uniform. "You fight well for prey," Kreshtar admitted, advancing slowly, "but your soft flesh cannot endure what mine can." Sarah wiped blood from her mouth and smiled, an expression that made several Corvashi warriors instinctively step back from the arena's edge. It wasn't the smile of someone accepting defeat. It was the smile of a predator who had been studying her prey. "You're right," she said, circling her massive opponent. "I can't endure what you can, but I don't have to." She feinted left, then dove right as Crescitar's axe cleaved through the space she'd vacated. But this time, instead of rolling away, she rolled toward him, her blade finding the vulnerable joint where his leg met his torso. She twisted as she struck, severing the crucial ligament that supported his massive frame. Crescitar toppled, his war axe clattering across the arena floor. Sarah was on him before he could recover, her sword at his throat, pressing just hard enough to draw a thin line of blue blood. The arena fell silent. Admiral Vextar rose from his throne, disbelief etched across his alien features. According to their laws, Crescitar had lost. The human had won. But Sarah wasn't finished. She stood, helping the wounded warrior to his feet with surprising gentleness. Then, in a gesture that would be remembered for generations across the galaxy, she extended her hand to him, not in dominance but in respect. "You fought with honor," she said simply. Crescitar stared at the offered hand for a long moment, then clasped it with one of his own. The crowd erupted, not in bloodlust, but in something approaching awe. Sarah walked to the center of the arena and picked up the fallen Imperial banner, a trophy that symbolized Corvashi supremacy across the stars. But instead of claiming it as her prize, she held it aloft and spoke words that would echo through history. "The Corvashi are mighty warriors. Humanity doesn't seek to conquer you. We seek to stand beside you among the stars. Let this be the beginning of something greater than either of our species could achieve alone." She walked out of that arena carrying the enemy's banner, but, more importantly, she carried the seeds of an alliance that would reshape the galaxy. The war was over, not through domination, but through the most human of qualities, the ability to turn enemies into friends. Admiral Vextar watched her go, and for the first time in his long military career, he understood why these small, fragile humans had spread so quickly across the stars. They didn't just survive, they inspired others to be better than they were. Humanity had won more than a battle that day. They had won something far more precious: respect.